I wanted to get all of you to come together to talk about your unique perspective in this whole merger deal going on. We've got Ryan, who helps advisors find good spots, and he kind of knows the ins and outs of the business. Penny's a consultant. Jason's built an amazing platform that would kind of be an option for some of us. Leanne is in the same boat as I am, who might be an advisor that might find themselves on the short end of the stick. And then Manish is out there building this awesome company in Tampa to help advisors who might not find a loving home at Schwab. Welcome to another bonus episode of The Advisor of Tomorrow. I don't know if this is really going to call this a podcast or not. It'll be on the podcast, but I have 5 of my friends here with me to talk about Mr. Ryan Shank's tweet from a couple weeks ago. I saw it and it immediately, I thought of myself selfishly because it impacts me. And I thought I'm not the only one who's going to be thinking about this. So the tweet, Ryan, was, what will the acquisition of TD Ameritrade by Schwab mean for RIA? So since you tweeted that, it's actually official. As somebody who uses TD as a custodian, I haven't heard anything yet. So nothing at this moment, but it would mean better technology, pricing leverage, increased competition, less support, which from your survey was the one that won. I wanted to get all of you to come together to talk about your unique perspective in this whole merger deal going on. We've got Ryan, who helps advisors find good spots, and he kind of knows the ins and outs of the business. Penny's a consultant. Jason's built an amazing platform that would kind of be an option for some of us. Leanne is in the same boat as I am, who might be an advisor that might find themselves on the short end of the stick. And then Manish is out there building this awesome company in Tampa to help advisors who might not find a loving home at Schwab. So I thought it would be interesting. The only ground rules is I don't want this to be negative. I think we can have this conversation without talking negatively about any certain companies or anything along those lines. I want it to be positive and optimistic, but still talk about some of our concerns. So with that, let's go around. We'll start with Ryan, since your tweet is what brought us here together today, and do real quick introductions just in case anybody out there doesn't know these individuals. And then we'll dive in real quick and see where the conversation goes.
Awesome. Thank you. Ryan Shank, sports agent to financial advisors, co-founder of FA Match.
Oh, super sweet. All right, we'll go to Penny next.
Hi, Penny Phillips. I run Thrivos Consulting, a practice management, coaching, and consulting company based in New York City. And we spend 100% of our time talking to financial advisors and institutions. And when I launched the business, the mission was to help advisors manage change and thrive. I didn't know just the amount of change we're going to help them manage come this year. So it's been cool to be in business and sit alongside advisors.
And Leanne?
Hey, my name is Leanne Miko. I'm a certified financial planner, and my RIA is Equalities Financial. We're a small fee-only independent shop. Our whole mission is to basically help anyone that has been told no or ignored by any traditional advisor, particularly working with the LGBTQ community and those with progressive values. And so this is definitely a great conversation to be having.
And any advisors out there that want to see what a fire rebrand looks like, go check out Leanne's website and the new rebrand, because it's great. Manish, we'll go with you next.
My name is Manish Kata. I'm the president of Potomac Fund Management. We are an investment strategist and recently launched a TAMP based out of Miami. The TAMP is really for smaller advisors who are frustrated with the customer service that they're getting at larger players. And it kind of will dive into that in this conversation as part of the support issues that may arise.
And last, but certainly not least, my friend and someone who's become a mentor, Mr. Wank, will you give your introduction, please?
Mr. here, so I guess I'm like the senior spokesman, but I'm Jason Wank, and I'm the founder CEO of Altruist, which is, I think, probably the newest custodian, and we're one out there that exclusively works with RIAs. And I think very similar to Leanne's mission for clients, we started this as a way to make it to where any advisor, regardless of the size of the firm, can in a very economical way deliver their best advice to clients, and the clients themselves don't have to have like any certain account size either. So really just trying to make it a lot easier for more people to get access to a professional financial advisor.
So before we get, one of the things I want to make sure we hit on in a little bit, I'm going to put out there now, is just this concept of grow or die. And can a smaller advisory firm succeed and be successful, or do you have to keep on finding and growing and growing? But I wanted to go to Leanne first, since of everybody here, you would be the one who could potentially, I don't know who you custody with, but just you can at least put yourself in the shoes of somebody who might be impacted by this. So the rumors are out there that, Schwab historically has not welcomed smaller advisors starting up. That's one of the reasons I landed at TD right out the gate. Thinking about, putting yourself as somebody who has a business that's helping people who have been told no and wanting to continue to do that and grow your business, helping that, the thought of maybe being dumped or charged higher fees because of the size of your business. What is your initial thought when you think about this merger and what it could mean to your business?
As much as I tried to ignore it initially, that's becoming really difficult to do at this point. I want to be optimistic that things will, there's going to be bumps along the road. That's just going to happen. And I want to believe that at the end of this, things will still run smoothly. I'll feel welcomed. But I'm doubtful that that's going to be the case. And that's partially because of the size of my firm. And to your point, grow or die. I don't actually want to grow too much more than I have. Like I have a point in time where I'm like, this is great. I want to serve this many clients that I kind of want to stay at this point. I feel confident that I could continue that pace and continue my practice, earn enough revenue, be comfortable. But if I can't find partners that are willing to work with me with that mentality, I think I'm left in a really hard place of, well, what are the options here then? Because a lot of the big players are all about grow, grow, grow. How can we help you grow your, AUM? How can we help you do all these things? And it's like, well, just help me maintain. And I don't think they really want to do that.
What are your thoughts on the potential of, being on TD? I mean, we are paying, our clients are paying, it's just all hidden. But what are the thoughts of, okay, you can stay on the platform. We're not going to hound you on growth, but now you're going to have a platform fee. How do you think advisors feel about that potential?
I guess it's all relative to the size of your business, what your revenue is, what the fee would be. To some extent, right? It would make sense. We pay fees for everything else that we do, and absolutely, I think a lot of us are willingly blind to what we're actually paying on the back end, and our clients are paying on the back end. But it being in front of our face forces us to make a decision consciously and intentionally to say, well, this is what I'm willing to do. And so I guess it really depends on, like I said, the size of the revenue of the firm and the fee they're going to charge, and also the services that you use with the custodian. I know they provide a ton of different services, but if I'm only really using a handful of them, like there's no real ability to say, well, I'm only using a fraction of what you're offering, but you're still making me charge for the whole, ship here. I'm not sure how that's going to work out, quite frankly. I'm a little scared.
Well, I have one more question before we kind of open it up and get some other dynamics to it. As you think about like your business, you don't want to grow a lot, but you still have to think about the future. Are there anything on your mind or anything you're thinking about now that you're already making changes about? And I'm prefacing that with, I kind of operate in this mindset that I'm stubborn. Like TD and Schwab can do their thing. They're not going to stop my success. I'm going to find a way. Like I found a way to get where I'm at today. Yeah, there are bumps along the way, but they're not going to stop me from succeeding and doing what I want to do. But I haven't thought about what am I going to do if this happens quite yet. But I didn't know if you've started mapping out a game plan or you're just going to kind of wait and see once the dust settles.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to be as proactive as I can within reason. I'm definitely starting to field calls from clients of their concern about what's going on. And part of that, not to bring politics into it, but there's certainly a values misalignment with Schwab and some of my clients. And that's really important to me that I make sure that I recognize that with them and I, make moves that are going to make them feel comfortable and myself as well. So I'm trying to explore different options, going out there. Of course, Jason's got Altruist, which I've met with Jason a while back. So I'm certainly exploring that avenue and how to shuffle things a bit to have that game plan to say, hey, if this really does all, go to hell in a handbasket, that I've got a quick out or something that's going to provide even a better or different opportunity for my clients. So certainly exploring those options right now to make sure that I am doing what's in my client's best interest.
And full disclosure, I have clients on Altruist platform as well. So I've got TD and Altruist running for my firm. I'll open it up. I wanted to get the advisor's perspective first, and you guys all work with advisors. So I don't know if anybody wants to hop in with a specific comment, kind of where we're at now, and go from there. Like Manish, I want to get kind of your standpoint of what the opportunity you see to be able to serve advisors, and why would you want to serve the advisors that these other big companies don't want. But before we get there, is there anything that you guys have heard from other advisors, concerns, things that you're seeing advisors do, or is the field kind of waiting until we get more information?
I think there's action that's already being taken. I think that, a lot of the relationships that were at TD Ameritrade, really, really good people hired over there, are leaving. And those relationships are tailored to those advisors like yourself, right? You establish that relationship. And I think what's frustrating is that you made that decision yourself, right? You chose to move your client assets there. The decision for that sale to take place didn't consider your concerns. Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest issue is there's no transparency on whether there's a plan to increase and tax smaller RIAs with this new merged entity. And I think that's, so what you got to do is if you're comfortable sitting back and reacting, great, sit back and react. But the truth is most independent RIAs are very proactive, mm-hmm. and they want to take control of that. So I feel like with what Jason has built, I think that the more aware they become of a platform like that is not going to weigh you and measure your worth based upon the assets, I think that's significant.
Jason, I saw you get ready to say something.
I'm just going to add, it was just sort of serendipitous, but I did a call this morning with an advisor who reached out to me through LinkedIn. We just met this morning for the first time, but he told me that he had already been given pricing, to maintain relationships. And basically his business was stocks and very zero use of no transaction fee mutual funds, essentially a type of business that's not very profitable for a custodian. And but an option, if he wanted to stay with this particular custodian, it's one of the major ones, but I'll leave the name off here. It was either basis points or per account pricing. And his client base, he said, is basically mixed, half high net worth and half kind of not. And so for them, the economics made the most sense to take the dollars per account, but it was $200 was the going rate that he was given. So $200 just to be able to maintain custody. And the challenge got really frustrated was, of course, imagine if you have a client that they have $10,000. I mean, there's just no economics. There's no way an advisor can make that work, much less a client that's getting started with, $200. They're just trying to kind of ramp up a savings plan as part of a financial plan. So I think we're going to hear more and more about that. That was the first time I've heard lots of rumblings and rumors from people, but this is the first time I heard it right from the horse's mouth that was a price quoted by one of the major custodians.
What about you, Penny? What are you hearing when you talk to advisors?
What I'm hearing is the biggest challenge right now for advisors, and I'll just say I don't think this is surprising information, right? We've sort of known that the industry is consolidating in a bunch of different ways because of fee compression, and it's difficult to run an operationally efficient and profitable firm under, let's call it 100 million in AUM. And so, I don't think this news is surprising. I think what I'm hearing from advisors in terms of fear is just the lack of communication and uncertainty around what exactly does this mean and what do the next 2 years look like. And I think that's where advisors are feeling really stressed and nervous right now. And I think any scenario in which you give advisors and ultimately the consumer less choice and optionality and flexibility, the worse off it is for the advisor. The one thing we've been talking a lot about, and we look at it from slightly a different perspective, because most of our consulting and coaching is around, optimizing your team and building the business you want to build. And I'm so happy to hear Leanne talk about, I don't want to necessarily exponentially grow 10x. I think the way we define success in the industry is not aligned with how many independent advisors think about what they want for their business. And so the most important thing I think advisors should be thinking about is educating the end client on the difference between wealth management and investment management. Because you're going to have to make up the margin, in business as fees continue to compress and, costs are higher. And so educating clients about the advice that you deliver, maybe looking at charging fees for advice or charging differently next year. I want advisors to start thinking strategically about that, because this is going to have a negative impact on many advisors' businesses, and they have to be prepared for that.
So Manish, if us smaller guys are so worthless, why are you building a business to service us? If you're watching, if I forget, it's not really watching this. I did that worthless in quotations for everybody listening on the podcast. We are not worthless. And before we get to that, I think that, I don't know if this is part of your reasoning, Manish, but I think it's a long-term play to get in with advisors like Leanne and myself. And this is one of the reasons I like the subscription model, and selfish plug, I have a course coming out on that. But the clients we serve are going to be part of this huge wealth transfer down the road, that those assets are currently sitting at the bigger players that are going to go to the advisors that those bigger players didn't want. I don't know if it puts a big dent in the big custodians in the future, but I could see a company like Altruist or Manish, your TAMP, having huge inflows in the next 20 years, solely because the clients we're helping today that are just starting out are inheriting trillions of dollars, and it's leaving that old place because they didn't want us advisors, and now you're ahead of the game. So I don't know if that's part of it, but what is it that made you want to build your business to help the starting advisor or the smaller advisor?
Well, before I jump in that, let's clarify a couple things. When you talk about the custodians and what they're going to do, part of it is because they set themselves up for this, right? The fee pressures, and I think fee compression is real, but I think it's a little overblown. I think the decks just get shuffled around and it just gets taken somewhere else. And so the custodians came into this and said, all right, let's cut the commission, right? And to Jason's point, if you're all stocks and no NTF funds and you don't use cash, they really have no use for you in their traditional model. Now, we all know they get paid from other avenues like order flow and things they don't want to talk about on paper. So that's let's define what's going to happen. To me, if you're small, let's say under 50 million and don't have those revenue sources for them, cash and NTF being the big ones, there's probably going to be a per account or basis point fee. 50 to 100 million, in my opinion, you're not going to get those fees. You may not be asked to leave, but your service will go to shit. You'll get a hotline, you'll get a chat, you'll get a group function, maybe overseas, whatever it may be. And it's not necessarily their fault. This is just the way the industry has gone, and consolidation, something always breaks off from consolidation, right? If you asked Jason 10 years ago if he thought he was open a custodian, he'd say you're fucking crazy, right? And so, but he's come into this because of what's happening with consolidation. So, it's kind of the natural progression of business where we all step up. And so where I want to step up is I just get tired of the constant beatdown of advisors who, listen, if you have $20 million and you're in a small town and you have a good book of business, you pay your staff, you live a good life, why is that looked down upon? Just because some custodian can't profit and squeeze from you? Well, there's other custodians that can. There's other TAMPs that can help out because you're leveraging their ability to have more assets at a certain custodian. And so we kind of set out and said, I'm a huge fan of small business, and I just want to continue that trend where it's like, I'm not going to get to a certain point. We're going to cut off growth at a certain point because you want to deliver customer service. You want to help smaller advisors. And so I just think they're getting left behind. And so, that's kind of the plight or the what we're taking on, at least with that community.
I do want to say one thing. I'll speak for myself as an advisor. I think most advisors, it's not that we don't think that the custodians should make money. Like, they do provide service to us. So I don't think it's fair that I get a free ride or an advisor gets a free ride because we're not using those funds. I think the frustration in this whole thing goes back to Ryan's point that, technically we're not shareholders, so we don't need to be, contacted about this, but there was nothing about our businesses that helped them, achieve their success that was thought about this transition. And then the lack of information and not knowing and the rumors circulating around, I would feel like if you're going through a big transition, there's that much time before it's approved. they could have put together something to say, hey, here's at least what we're thinking about, rather than leaving those out there trying to, battle running a business, growing a business, and figure out we might have to make some big transitions here in the coming months because of things going on and where I'm at.
Yeah, Justin. But what do you expect them to do? You expect them to say, look, if you're not producing any money for us, we're going to ask you to leave when this is done. I mean, they're going through a merger, so that's
why not though. Not
what big business does. Big business lies to you until they figure out what to do with you. It's just, I don't know let me put it this way. What do you expect them to do? Do you want a memo that says, in this asset range, you'll get a gift card, in this asset range, we won't talk to you? Like, what do you expect them to do?
I would love for them to say, we know the cultures of TD and Schwab are different. TD was more friendly to the smaller business. They came from small business owners, and that's kind of how they grew up. Schwab's always been about bigger is better. So we know there's this cultural difference. We know that we're bringing over advisors from TD that would not have been on the Schwab platform before. Here's what we're thinking. Maybe even like send a survey out to the advisors to say, would you prefer a per account fee? Would you prefer a basis point? And even if it's all fake, they don't really care what we think. At least make me feel like you're considering my business and you want me to succeed, to make it's culture. Make me feel like you care about me, even if you're going to throw my survey out. I don't know that. All I know is you took the time in the middle of this big merger to see what are my thoughts and let me have some input into it. And then if you decide against it, at least I got to put my thought in there. And there must have been more advisors that wanted the other way, whether it's true or not. So that's what I would love for them to do. And I don't think it's hard. I get that's not what they're going to do, but I don't. That's why I like small business, because I feel like small business owners are more likely to do that stuff. And then the other thing I thought I would throw out there too, and then open back up for everybody, is like we've all hit on it without saying, like, the definition of success is not a $1 billion firm. It could be for somebody, but a definition of success could getting to the number of households that Leanne wants to service, have a good income, make good impact, but have a great life. And I hate when advisors lead off with, I manage X amount of dollars in AUM. Because who's to say if that's successful or not? You could be a $1 billion firm and poorly run and not be successful. And you get somebody running lean and mean at 25 million, living in the Midwest, and is thriving. So this whole definition of success in our profession needs to change. And maybe that's a conversation for another day, but I think that plays into this as well. What other thoughts? I'm not done by any means, but I'm hogging, so I want to let you guys talk because everybody wants to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, look, I'll go back to the cultural thing. I think you've got one firm that gives a shit about you on a smaller scale. And culturally, you've got another one on the opposite extreme that is just accustomed to working with larger enterprises, call it. And the people who you had the relationship with that cared about you have been forced through this transaction to go and seek work elsewhere. Mm-hmm. So, they're kind of in a really tough spot. They can't really care for you like they'd like to, because they got to look out for their family. They got to look out for their business and where they're going to earn a living. And so I think, you could do a study off of sort of cultural acquisition. Like, there's certain acquisitions that don't make sense. My opinion doesn't matter, but I think that you have two companies with polar opposite cultures and total polar opposite sort of service model standards. So when you try to integrate those two together, right, that becomes a real issue. But I also think that it creates choice. And I think that this is a highly competitive landscape. And I think that when you have circumstances like this, Manish talked about it, things sort of lop off. Something's going to break down off of this and something's going to come from it.
Yeah, Manish, that was I think such a great comment about this is going to be an opportunity for unknown players. I was reading an article about Edelman, sending out RFPs, and, they named Apex as like an unknown player in the landscape. And I just think this is going to be an opportunity for others to take center stage. And it's going to be really important for advisors. And here's the difficult part, to educate themselves on the options that exist in the industry outside of the ones that we're used to hearing about, in the news and the press releases. And so, out of chaos comes opportunity. It's a Game of Thrones line. I love to throw that in whenever I can. Miss that show, but yeah, I think you nailed it with that comment.
So, RIAs, Ryan, you said tend to be more forward thinking. What are some creative things that might be opportunities for firms? Let's say it does go and it's not friendly to us. We've got Altruist as an option. We've got companies like Potomac that are option as well. But let's take this back. Do you see firms joining up together? So finding cultures that align to smaller RIAs that combine to create a bigger RIA that now they have these services, strength comes in numbers. Do we see more of that? Or
I do think so. I think you start to unify folks like that where, right, you can be in complete control of the cultural alignment. So, 2, 3, 4 of you could start to come together. Maybe you do start to drive some of the traditional pricing leverage. So maybe you're at 100 million and you each bring 25 million to the table. And perhaps, that works for you. But I think that the traditional sense, I've always sort of viewed it and I've hated it, but I've always told advisors that unfortunately your value is measured in this industry based upon your clients, the assets, and the revenue generation from those assets. So from a traditional sense, that gives you leverage in technology and custody and really across the board. And it's no different than lots of other industries. I think that we're at an interesting time now where if there was the alignment exercise or folks like Manish and Jason that are rolling out the ability to show that they care and to have technology be maybe far superior for a smaller advisor, you level the playing field. You're not concerned about the traditional leverage anymore. And the truth is, you got into the business because you wanted to take care of your clients, right? That's still number one. So do you want to be bogged down with all the bullshit of running the business, or would you like to have the right partners that are going to align to help you scale that?
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing I want to add, I think Leanne made a really good point earlier that got glossed over, is that advisors aren't innocent here. I know we're all pro advisor and I'm number one there, but they're not innocent either here. They've been, having access to free custodian services for a long time, which frankly, back in the day, at least, it is expensive. And maybe Jason can correct me, but to operate a custodian, and advisors have been accessing that for free. And as fees have compressed, I don't think advisor fees have really compressed. There have been product fees and all these other things, but the advisors, for the most part, are still sitting pretty at a rate that they've had for years. So, they're not entirely innocent here either. There has to be some give and take, or a new competitor comes up and offers something different. But if you're going to use all these services of a custodian, listen, people have to get paid somehow. There's no magic tree that's just dropping dollars out there. So if they're not getting it from NTF funds, they're not getting it from you, it's going to have to come from somewhere. And so we'll see how that dynamic plays out for the smaller advisors, at least.
I think to that point, what strikes me is this idea that, I work with a lot of people from humble beginnings. So there tends to be a lot of skepticism around financial institutions to begin with and their trustworthiness. And so it's almost like having these big strategic partners, right, in a Schwab or in a TD Ameritrade, almost gives them some degree of confidence, right? When you're working with me, right, little old me, it's just here's my website and my name. But because I'm not necessarily affiliated with a Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley kind of big firm, it's kind of well, what is the big name behind you that we can rely on and have some confidence in? It's I have TD Ameritrade. Right, you switch that out for something that's unknown that might be more cost effective. There's a little hesitation that I find there. And so it's kind of balancing those two things and making sure that I'm both doing what's best for my client, but also giving them the confidence, right? So what's in their best interest also extends beyond the financial component, is also kind of the psychological, emotional component to it as well.
Well, listen, it's true. When we had clients at the old trust company in America and Millennium Trust, and we used to custody there, and they would always tell us, who are these people, right? And with Fidelity, you point to the green line and a Super Bowl commercial, and there's, I know it sounds stupid, but there is some, especially dealing with a smaller advisor, you at times rely on the backbone of a bigger custodian because no one trusts advisors, and so that's important sometimes for clients to see. So to Leanne's point, at least.
Do you all think that's changing though, as the consumer becomes less and less sort of loyal to big brand name and more loyal to sort of individual people that they build relationships with. Do you see that changing? I ask that because I see it with my clients and what they tell me about their clients. What about you folks?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely changing. I mean, it's all relevant. Go ahead, Jason.
Back a few things, because like there's been like a few conversations, but I'd say one, Penny, I think you're totally right. First of all, like the history of the RIA industry was really breakaway advisors, 30, 40 years ago. So advisors came from places like Merrill Lynch. And so I think like this notion that you had to be with like a major custodian, it was sort of like how people validated them leaving the bank they used to work at or the wirehouse they used to work at. But the truth is, an advisor could switch custodians 10 times and their clients just follow the advisor. Like that's who they hire. Like the relationships with the advisor, same reason why when an advisor leaves a wirehouse, they leave with them most of the time if the advisor's got a good relationship. So there's a lot that's going on there. To like something Mish said, like one thing in this acquisition is that it wasn't done for the RIA business. So like, let's like also be realistic with ourselves, like that this is almost an afterthought. This isn't why they did this deal. Like they did this deal for the retail business. And that's why, like, to Ryan's point, it's like one of the saddest things. We probably had no less than a dozen unbelievable executives for a home. We can't hire everybody, like, and these are awesome people. And it just speaks to that's not the priority here. Like the RIA unit it's a huge dollar, component, but that focus is, it's not where the focus has been for the last decade. Everything's been on the direct consumer business. It's in the consumer business because mix and how we do what we do. Like the client for a custodian is one where you charge them the advisory fee, a planning fee, you sell them the product, so it's your own ETFs, and they're using your bank FDI sweep accounts, right? Like, so that's what everybody wants, right? Like they want all of that business. That business yields probably 50, 60 basis points on it. Whereas like a well-run RIA that's putting their client's interest first is maybe yielding 15. So them to put huge money into building up of their business, this is the same. For 20, 30 years, we get fed a line of, well, we don't do technology integrated into our platform. We let you go build it best of breed. Who you sort of want. The truth is, we don't want to spend any money building this stuff. We're going to make you go pay for it elsewhere because we don't have great margins on this business. So have to not just, it's not about paying for custody, but they have to go pay for software solutions on top of it. So I think like one of the things advisors would be wise to think about is like, this is a bit of an attack on being an advisor. It's not about like which custodian's better or worse. I mean, but we have about that. If there's not a significant investment in sort of continuing to grow and evolve the RIA business, it's because those dollars are going elsewhere, which is essentially to take as many of those customers direct. Observed is exactly the same observations these executives of the major companies have, which is, hey, if we can cater to millennials, we're going to get money from our RIA customers anyway. Just we're going to get it directly, and we're going to make 3 times as much money. So let's put our emphasis on things that we can go take the clients maybe the RAs don't want. It's going to create a huge yield later. And I think the last point I just would share is like the advisor story I mentioned where I talked to someone today. That was $1 billion plus shop. That wasn't a $10 million shop being told that they were going to have to pay $200 per account. Like that was $1 billion plus major customer, of a major custodian. Probably the thing we've seen at Altruist is the number and 15 billion firms, even $50 billion mega RAs reaching out to us because they're going, hey, I'm being told I'm going to have to pay X basis points, which, that's hard for them to swallow. They're simultaneously being told, hey, we can't give you soft dollars anymore. And you have to keep in mind, a lot of these big firms, they were getting millions of dollars per year in soft dollars. So they built their entire business model around like, one, having free custody, and two, getting, millions of dollars in sort of, tech. Both everybody, and it's making it differently about their value prop. And I think that's where, like, Manisha's like, hey, look, the value prop's got to change a bit. It's okay to stop when you're happy. That's as advisors and the work we do with our clients, and I think this transaction is a big news thing. People have lots of opinions about it. But it's not Schwab and TD. It's like just bigger picture. Like, there's a lot of pressure on advisors because we're part of a, sort of financial services. And as a theme in almost all business, even outside of financial services, is how can you own the entire chain? So, we're getting a squeeze because we're just part of that. And I think it's important advisors to kind of like band together and kind of put our stake in the ground and, and really do things that, instead of like trying to figure out where we fit in, how do we band together to fight against the people that probably don't actually care greatly about us maybe in the first place.
You had me at that firm had $1 billion. So if I wasn't worried before, but I kind of am now.
Well, hey, kind of in closing thoughts, wrap this up. I think it's been a great conversation, a lot of things to think about. Hopefully it's given some ideas, hopefully maybe created a little bit of urgency for some advisors, myself being included, because I am more of a, let's see how the dust settles and then I'll figure my way, but maybe be more proactive. But any closing thoughts that anybody has around this, what advisors should be thinking about, what directions to look, options to think about, anything you would tell an advisor who is concerned watching this video?
It's your business. It's no one else's. Give them the middle finger. Do what you got to do. Small business, and just, take care of your people and your staff and your family, and everything else will fall into place.
I like all that. Me.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I agree. Educate yourself on alternative options out there and know your value as an advisor. And speak directly to your clients, be vulnerable with them, and they'll be with you no matter where you go or what you do.
I echo that, and just keep asking questions. Just get the answers to everything you need to know so you can take the appropriate action.
Well, and Ryan, I'm glad you said that because I strategically picked all of you to come on. So all of you are my friends. But I also know that all of you have solutions that could potentially help advisors in this situation, whether it's just you're a wealth of knowledge and you're, putting out content that will help them, or you actually have a solution that they should be aware of. So it wasn't by accident that Leanne, you can't really help them, but I wanted somebody that I knew that would be in the same boat. But the rest of you all have solutions that might help advisors. I also know all of you individually, and I know that you will provide them good information, be good resources, and also tell them if you're not a good fit and steer them in the right direction. So aside from having a good conversation, I also wanted to put forth some great resources and options for the advisors out there as well. So in all seriousness, call Ryan, call Penny, look at Potomac, look at Altruist. Like, these are all options that we have as advisors that we should be evaluating as we wait to see the dust settling and then be able to make our move proactively. So I am glad you said that, Ryan. I know you said that jokingly, but you're on here for a reason other than in addition to the tweet. So I just want to thank you guys all for taking time this afternoon and joining me to have this conversation. I think it's going to help out advisors. I will have links to all of your social media, to all of your websites, so anybody watching or listening can get connected with you and talk to you if they feel that's a good fit. But I definitely think it's something that will be a talk amongst the advisor community. Maybe we'll do another one of these if we ever get any information from them and talk about, okay, let's game plan together. Now this is what we know. What are options for us? What are things we can consider, and just kind of keep the conversation going. So I may hit you all up again in the future for another one of these. So thanks again, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Justin.
And we'll see you all in the next episode.